Hi guys, it is Tamara. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel. Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about ways to manage emotionally detached and unhealthy parents. I'm going to give you a couple of tips that have worked for not only, my family, but it's also worked for many of my clients and those who consult with me, as well as even my coworkers. So we're going to talk about different ways to kind of manage these parents. These parents are hard, they're difficult, and sometimes they're complicated, and they can have you swinging like a pendulum from one side to the next. So we're going to go ahead and just jump into that. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel. For all of you who are subscribed and participating, thank you so much. And for those who are new, I encourage you to hit that subscribe button so you can stick around with us and stay a part of our growing community. In case you don't know who I am, let me go ahead and briefly introduce myself. My name is Tamara, and I'm an internationally and board certified trauma therapist, but I'm also licensed in mental health, and I specialize in treating children, families, adolescents, and adults dealing with trauma. So, last week we talked a little bit about emotionally detached parents, and that video did pretty well in the stats of YouTube. And I think one reason is because there's a lot of misinformation online about families, and one big piece of misinformation is that family is thicker than water, right? Everything is family. Never disrespect your parent, no matter who they are. And all of those messages really send the message sometimes that no matter what the person is doing to you, if it's toxic, so what? And I don't think that that's a healthy way to manage any relationship, especially a family relationship or a parent-child relationship. You really have to have a healthy foundation and a healthy mindset, esteem, and heart to maintain an appropriate relationship with your parents, And if that means, distancing yourself and doing some of the things that I'm going to suggest in this video today, you got to do it. It's for your best. So I'm going to mention a couple of things that I think might be helpful to you. Okay, so the first thing that I suggest with these particular parents is that you learn to compromise. I'm going to mention 4 different C's here. That's going to make it easy for you to remember. Okay, 4 different C's, and I'll put them right over here for you. First C is compromise. You can't always get above or around or beneath, or over on an individual who is difficult to manage outside of what you're asking them. So for example, let's say you need a loan. You want to buy a home, you want to buy a new car, you need a loan. You're afraid to ask your mom or your dad or your step parent because you know how they're going to react. Well, they're going to probably act out. If they're stingy, if they're not very giving, if they're not very understanding, they're going to act out. And so in situations like that, you're going to have to compromise. Well, if you loan me this money, I'll give it back in a month. If you loan me this money, I'm going to work overtime to get it back to you. Compromise with that kind of parent because, something's wrong with the fact that they can't just give you easily anyway. You know what I mean? So, if you recognize that and it's going to be a big issue, compromise. The second C that I want you to think about is counseling. This is my profession, guys. I'm a psychotherapist at heart. And, do I believe that counseling is the it all? Absolutely not. I think there are other ways to manage and cope and deal with things, but I think it's important that you embrace some level of counseling, either for family, for yourself, for, the whole entire family, which could be group therapy, family therapy, whatever. I think sometimes it's just best to have an outside perspective and somebody who's really good at what they do to see from an objective point of view and also be able to give you information that maybe you don't have otherwise. So counseling. The third C that I suggest is compensation. When you know that you don't have the kind of parent that you want or that you desire or that you need, maybe looking at them from a different perspective might be helpful. Maybe looking at what they do for you may be helpful, right? If you can't have this thing, compensate, right? If you can't have a loving parent, maybe she's a really objective kind of a parent. She'll tell you the truth about things, So kind of compromise and compensate. Those are the 2 C's I think is most important with emotionally detached parents. Compromise and compensate. All right. The next thing that I suggest is limit competition. The minute you start pointing at other people's mothers or fathers or parents, step parents, that person is going to get pretty envious. They're also going to get uncomfortable with that. And they may start to, emotionally and psychologically abuse you if they are a mommy dearest kind of parent. I talk about that right up here in this video. Or if they're a psychopathic parent, I talk about that right over here in this video. So, if you have a parent like that, try to limit competition because it's going to trigger them to act in ways that is going to be hard for you to manage. All right. And the fourth C and the final C, or the fifth C, I should say, right? I'm on the fifth one, right, guys? Is competition and comparison. Okay. So I put those two things together because I think a lot of times what we do is we compare to other parents. And then in some way we think if we do that, then maybe our loved one will compete with that other person and get better. I've had a client in the past that did that. She would compare her father to her stepfather, and the actual father, the biological father, would actually compete with the stepfather, and it just created a big explosion, So compromise, counseling, compensation, limit comparison, and competition. Okay. So those are the 5 C's that I suggest. Now, there's a couple of other things that we can look at as well. Number 1 being set new limits. When you have a parent who's emotionally detached and doesn't know how to manage you, doesn't know how to help you, limit, set. That's the best way that I can put that, guys, right? Set new limits, set boundaries, know when to shut the door, know when to crack the door, know when to say, okay, no, this is how far you go, and I'm going to have to back out of this. Or I'm going to have to tell you, stay over there because you're going too far. So set new limits. The next thing that I suggest is self-care. If you don't take care of yourself, then you won't have the emotional and psychological stamina that you need to defeat the kind of relationship that you and your emotionally detached and unhealthy parent has, right? And what I mean by defeat is you won't be able to conquer it and get over it. You won't be able to set those boundaries appropriately because you're so emotionally and psychologically beat down. So take care of yourself. And that might be one of the C's that I mentioned, which is counseling. Okay, that's one way to do that. The next thing is equalize things, You may have to help this parent understand that they hurt you all the time. You're not being disrespectful, and you're definitely not trying to hurt them if you're a gracious kind of an individual. But in order to set new limits and self-care, you have to be able to equalize things. And one way to do that is to say, look, mom, dad, step-parent, you hurt me all the time, and here's how. And I'm asking that you would be aware of how you're doing things because it is impacting me negatively. I don't think that you should take abuse just because that individual is your parent or playing parent, they're a step-parent. You need to set new limits and help yourself by saying, to yourself, I need to equalize this relationship, and here's how I'm going to do it. And find ways to do that. You don't want to be disrespectful. You don't want to try to be arrogant or be above them, but you can equalize things in a way that's going to make that relationship a lot better, especially if you're a grown adult and they treat you like a child. Okay. The next thing that I suggest is don't fall for reality testing. Reality testing I talked about in the last video on emotionally detached parents, and that's when you push out of the picture of reality, you throw it over yourself, you minimize it, right? You kind of put the fire out of whatever it is that you can't handle, right? You're shifting reality in whatever way you think you need to so that you don't have to deal with it. But shifting reality is unhealthy. So when you see your parent doing that and they do it so well that they could actually, become an expert in it, then the best thing to do is find ways to bring that reality back around to them, right? But in a way that doesn't put you in hot water, because you don't want to argue with that parent all the time. But, just ensure that they see reality for what it is. The next thing is don't psychoanalyze everything. I had somebody years ago consult with me from Canada, and, every move and behavior and thought and emotion that family member would have or display, the person who consulted with me basically said this, look, this is psychology, that's Freudian, that's behaviorism, that's reality shifting, that's stonewalling, that's gaslighting. And I would sit there like, whoa, my head, right? So try not to psychoanalyze every single thing that person does, because I think when you do that, you not only blind yourself to all those psychological concepts that are sometimes irrelevant, but you also minimize your ability to be objective because you're just tossing around terms, because you learn them on Google, and sometimes that can really get in the way of reality. Last but not least, you want to make the move. I know it's easy to watch a video, read an article, call somebody on the phone and get some confidence and stamina and some ideas and some advice and say, you know what, I'm going to do it tomorrow. And then when tomorrow comes, you know what, I'm going to do it Saturday. And then Saturday comes and we're looking 2 years later and you're like, okay, I'm going to do it today. I know it's really hard to move away from a parent. It's really hard to move away from that toxic, unhealthy loved one. But if you know that's what you need to do, make the move. Find the opportunity to make the move and do it. You know, it's good for your mental and emotional health. And if you have to get counseling before and after, do that too, you know? Thank you so much for being with me today, guys, in this short video. I hope it was helpful. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you want to stick around with this. And please hit that thumbs up button. It pushes us up in YouTube and makes us available to other people who are looking for this kind of content. So you really are helping other people in the world of YouTube. So I will see you guys in the next video. We're going to keep these topics going. I see that you guys like them a lot. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.